Within 6 months, I was able to grow the online side of my business to match what I was doing in person that had taken me 15 years. And I was like, all right, well, that's a glaring sign that this thing is working. And I pay attention to trends and I pay attention to shifts in business. And this was a trend and a shift in business. So I wanted to free up more of my time so I can spend it online, which I started doing. So I was not taking on new clients. If a client fell off, I was not trying to replace them at that point. I started to raise my package rates in person. So it would cause more people not to renew, and the people that would be paying more. So it was still worth my time. Then as things naturally progress, I started reaching out to some friends of mine that were also coaches, and they were consultants, not just in the wellness space, but just in business. And I said, if you're not using LinkedIn, you should be. Like, I'm having a field day over here.
Yes.
So I taught them all. I wasn't charging anything. They were just friends. So I'm like, here's what you need to do, blah, blah, blah.
Welcome back to the 7-Figure Leap podcast. I am excited today. I've got a friend, an entrepreneur, someone who's got a real shared value system around family and kind of the purpose of entrepreneurship. And I think most importantly for you guys as listeners, he's a bona fide LinkedIn expert. So LinkedIn is something that seems like it comes up in every conversation I have when it comes to marketing. I feel like it's really the yin and the yang with what we teach with podcast guesting. And so I'm really excited to have Scott Aaron here. Scott and I met a little while back. We kind of run in similar circles. We were both guest experts on someone else's forum called Magpie, a tool we both use. And as we got to talk and shop, I was like, I would love to have you come on to this podcast and kind of give us the the practical takeaways for LinkedIn and how to actually use it here in 2025. So Scott, welcome. I really appreciate you being here. Would love for you to kind of take the mic, introduce yourself, and kind of wherever you think is most appropriate to tune people into your story and start digging into why LinkedIn, why now, why is this your passion? I would love to hear more of your backstory.
Awesome. Thanks, Dustin. And yeah, it works. Just use it. Thanks. Have a great day.
No, that's a wrap.
All right. So I like to give context behind everything. I believe there's a reason to every rhyme. And for me, I always tell people I've been psychologically unemployable since day one. So I've never worked for anybody. I've only worked for myself. I was as Dustin and we were talking in the pre-show, I come from a fitness background. So I was in the fitness industry from 1998 to 2016. I owned 3 different health clubs. I was a personal trainer, sports nutritionist, corporate wellness speaker, everything that, required, to be very busy. That's what I was. I was working like 80 hours a week, had a lot of ups and downs, and kind of shifted into the online space in 2013. And I'll kind of share why. So for me, one of the most impactful moments, I would say professionally, was something personally, and that was the birth of my son. In 2012. And I remember, growing up, my dad was always present. He was an entrepreneur himself, still is. And he was at everything. He was at every basketball game. He was my baseball coach. He was there. I mean, he could make everything. He wasn't working late nights. He wasn't working weekends. And I said to myself, I'm like, man, I'm working late nights. I'm working weekends. I want to replicate the availability that my dad had, so I can have the same thing. I'll never forget. I was proposed a question by a friend of mine, and they said, if you got sick or injured where you couldn't physically train people anymore, like God forbid something happened, you couldn't train people, you couldn't get to the gym, something happened to the gym, how would you earn a living? And this was, I would say, at this time, the scariest question I've ever been asked, because for me, I never thought about my business mortality. I never thought about doing anything else but that. And when I was posed that question, it allowed me to see my future through a different lens.
Yeah.
So then I started to think about, okay, I get the point of the question. I need to start thinking outside the box. And this is when social media really started to become very prevalent in business promotion. So between, I would say 2011 to 2015 was like the real heyday of people really getting on to social media and really promoting their services, right? So I was charging a premium price for personal training in person at the time. I mean, this is, I was charging anywhere between $75 to $100 an hour. It was good, but it was trading time for dollars, right? So The only time I would earn is if I was training, right? There was no vacation really. It was like a week off was a week off of no money.
Yes.
So I couldn't afford to be sick. I couldn't afford to get injured. So then I started to think about, okay, let me look at the demographics of the people that I serve. So I started to look at my appointment book and the different types of people that I was training, what are their backgrounds? And there was just a glaring statistic that they were all business professionals. They were people that were driving on their way to work that would see me. They were people driving on their lunch break to see me and on their way home from work. So then I said to myself, if all of these business professionals in the local area are willing to see me in person, there's got to be a place for me in the online forum where I can connect with business professionals so I can serve them that way as well. So then I started to think about, okay, where am I most likely to connect with the business avatar that I'm looking for in the online space? It wasn't Facebook, wasn't Instagram, it was LinkedIn. Now, I had started on LinkedIn in 2009 for my gym and personal training. At that point, my profile was just collecting dust at that point. So I went on there, I changed things around, keyworded it more for online coaching, online training. So really predominantly putting myself in the online space. So when people would see my profile, they knew that I worked remote, I can work online. So I said to myself, if I can start creating tailored fitness routines, workouts, nutrition plans for the business professionals on here, I can charge X amount of $100 per month, for 8 or 12 weeks, whatever they want to pay. I can start working with these people this way. I do a bi-weekly check-in with them, whether it's on Zoom or a phone call, whatever it is, right? And within 6 months, I was able to grow the online side of my business to match what I was doing in person that had taken me 15 years. And I was like, all right, well, that's a glaring sign that this thing is working. And I pay attention to trends and I pay attention to shifts in business. And this was a trend and a shift in business. So I wanted to free up more of my time so I can spend it online, which I started doing. So I was not taking on new clients. If a client fell off, I was not trying to replace them at that point. I started to raise my package rates in person. So it would cause more people not to renew, and the people that would be paying more. So it was still worth my time. Then as things naturally progress, I started reaching out to some friends of mine that were also coaches and they were consultants, not just in the wellness space, but just in business. And I said, if you're not using LinkedIn, you should be. Like, I'm having a field day over here.
Yes.
So I taught them all. I wasn't charging anything. They were just friends. So I'm like, here's what you need to do, blah, blah, blah. One person in particular wrote me back, sent me a text message I'll never forget. And it said, dude, call me. So I called him and I said, what's up? And he goes, listen, I don't know what you figured out with this LinkedIn thing, but he goes, you need to be teaching this to people. I said, what do you mean teach it to people? He goes, I have 14 appointments booked. Like, you could be helping so many coaches and consultants on LinkedIn that are probably not getting these results that I just got because of the simple things you told me to do. And I said, I don't know. I'm like, I just don't see the correlation. He goes, and this is what helped me. He goes, Scott, you've spent the last 15 years helping people build healthy bodies. Now you're going to help people build healthy businesses. And I'm like, ooh, that's good. I'm like, that makes sense. So it was at that moment, two things happened. Number one, I first got the results for myself, and then I proved the concept by someone else getting results. So once those two boxes were checked, I'm like, you know what? I can take this to market. Now, it just so happened that I was working with a business coach at the time, and he had a podcast. And this is back in the days of 1-800-conferencecall.com.
Yeah, exactly.
Really aging myself right now. And I go on there and I'm just, spitting out all these statistics and facts and things and the reasons why people need to be on LinkedIn. And again, this is now 2014, this is 11 years ago. And when I got off of that call, I was just checking some notifications on Facebook, and 8 people that I knew had reached out to me saying, how much do you charge for your coaching? And I'm like, I didn't say that I coached. Like I never mentioned any sort of
squats and deadlifts here. I don't understand.
Yeah, I'm like, and every message was like, can you teach me how to use LinkedIn? Can you coach me? Can I pay you? And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, these people want to pay me to teach them how to use LinkedIn. And that was like, okay. The third box that I didn't really recognize that was there, that I also needed to check was the need for it in the marketplace. So the 3 boxes that everyone needs to check is proving it for yourself, proving it from someone else, and seeing if there's a need for it in the marketplace. And that's what it did for me. So at that point, I didn't have a website. I didn't have a way to take payment, right? Like,
Yeah.
are these people going to write me checks and mail them to me? Like, how's this supposed to happen? So I opened up a PayPal account. I downloaded the Square app and basically launched my consulting practice. And from that point on, so now in my 12th year, as you alluded to, my wife and I run 3 businesses together. One, I solely run myself, which is my LinkedIn coaching and consulting. I have 5 different books. I have a membership that's called the Expert Content Society, which is a private LinkedIn community membership that basically we teach people how to create compelling and genuine content on LinkedIn with AI prompts and playbooks and checklists and worksheets. So it's for someone that's really looking to elevate their LinkedIn content. That's how we help people. I have a DIY course now. I have group coaching that I launch twice a year. And obviously I do high level one-to-one consulting. And that's more for, I would say, that 6 into multi 6, 7-figure business owner that has like, I would say, a high ticket offering. So I'm working with a guy right now. He coaches CEOs and founders. He sold his business for like 8 figures, did really well with it. And he's now giving back by teaching other CEOs and founders how to grow and scale their business. I mean, he's got a very high ticket offering. He charges like a lot per month. He was on my podcast and he's like, oh, he goes, I see you do LinkedIn coaching. He goes, what do you charge? How's it work? And then basically he's picked up, I think, 4 clients in the last 7 weeks.
Wow.
That has 60x'd his investment in me. And that's what feels the best, because when I can help someone like completely just crush it on there, like that feels amazing. So, and that's everything that I'm doing now. Like, LinkedIn is one of those playgrounds and one of those sandboxes that if you're a coach, if you're a consultant, if you're a service professional and you have something of over $1,000 to offer, you need to be on there, because the average income is $75,000 to $100,000 a year more. So you're in a space where you have more opportunity of more people that can afford what you're offering. And that's why I teach people how to use it.
I love it. So a couple sort of themes there, and then we'll dive more into the strategy side and how people can do this for their business. But the term business mortality, that's the first time I've heard someone say that. I love that as like the impetus for why you needed to change your delivery model, your business model, right? And like what I say sometimes is people talk about, well, what if you get hit by a bus and you die? Like that is a good thought exercise, because you want to make sure your family's secure and hopefully your business can live on without you if that's a priority for you. The question people don't ask is, what if you get hit by a bus and you don't die and you're maimed, right? And you just lose the ability to deliver what you do in person or, in the current model that you have. And I think that this idea of resiliency is really important. And so for you, that was a drive, life change, child's here, you're reflecting back on your own dad's legacy and how he was there for you. And it forced you to think in a new way about how you deliver value in the marketplace. So that was number 1, business mortality. I think that's a really healthy exercise, even though it's a crude term. I think it's important for people to think about that. 2, build healthy businesses. Like I have an engineering background and people are like, well, how's engineering going to like podcast guesting? I'm like, well, engineering is just problem solving, right? So like my whole thing is helping people come up with a game plan and action plan to solve a problem. The problem I solve is lead generation. To me, that's very cohesive. And so I love that you had this fitness background and working with these individuals on their physical health. And you're like, well, I can do that for their business health too. And I thought that was cool. And then the final nugget here that I think I want to call out is kind of the 3-step validation process, if you will. Do something that works for you. And once it works for you, see if you can help someone else. Could be friends and family. It could be someone that, you're close to in a community. And that proves external validation to someone else. Like this is a transferable value add. And then 3, then you bring it to market, which you did through 1-800 conference call or whatever. And you got like immediate validation from the market that like, yes, other people want this. And this is like a viable business. That's a really important context and like why you do this, how you made this shift. And of course, you've done this to like the nth degree, written 5 books. You've got multiple modes of ways to provide value, all the way from courses and community up to, premium coaching. I love that backstory. I'm really grateful you shared that. Let's talk about LinkedIn today. So I feel like, I got on LinkedIn. I was probably on it maybe the same time as you. I mean, I probably had some sort of online profile when I had an engineering job and was like, it's an online resume. But, a couple of years ago, I started actually paying attention to it, being strategic, creating content. Now it's kind of, it's part of the system that I look at as marketing. And I know I can learn a lot from you. So if someone's listening and they're like, hey, I'm a coach, I'm a consultant, like I get a lot of referrals. I kind of like dink around on LinkedIn. I scroll on there sometimes, but I don't really get it. LinkedIn 101 for someone who's got a good offer. They love to serve people. They get good referrals. Like, where do they start? I know that's like the kindergartner question to ask someone of your esteem, but I still think it's really important to kind of go down to the basics of like, what's it for? How do they use it? And then we can talk a little more about some advanced strategy.
Yeah, so I would say, well, first and foremost, LinkedIn is a giant search engine, right? So everything that I do for myself, still for my business, and everything I do with my clients is from a visibility standpoint. So what can I do for myself that will create more visibility on the platform that will draw more people to me? So that's first and foremost, and that's what I do with people. Because again, social media is rented land. So for me, what I also teach is what can we do on the platform to get people from online to offline? So what can I do on LinkedIn to turn my LinkedIn profile into a lead magnet, which is one of the advanced strategies which we'll cover towards the end. But I would say from a very foundational standpoint, number one, you need to have a fully optimized LinkedIn profile. So anyone that goes to my website, scottaaron.net, there's actually a free download on there that basically teaches you the 6 steps. It's a pop-up that comes right up, just name and email. And it's a nice little 6-page infographic that kind of goes through these strategies. But I'll cover them right now. The first thing is like using keywords in your headline that your ideal client avatar will be searching for. So think about, your offering and who you're offering from a professional or industry standpoint. What keywords would they have to put into the search engine that would enable your profile to populate? So is that marketing, branding, podcasting, lead generation, sales, client acquisition, whatever the case may be? And if you put those in your headline, again, LinkedIn always pulls keywords from the headline. So if you've ever done a search on LinkedIn and you hit search and you look at the search result, you'll see in bold where LinkedIn pulled that keyword from. And 9 times out of 10, it's from the headline section, right? So make
To be
sure that,
really clear, the headline, if you're looking at your LinkedIn, you have your name, and then the thing right under your name is the headline, right?
yeah. And what you don't want is like an I help statement, because that's something that you should include in the summary or the about section, because that's not searchable. People aren't searching I help. They're searching marketing, branding, lead gen, client acquisition, whatever the case may be. So that's the first thing. The second thing, and I know this is even like I would say pre-K, connecting with the people that actually would value what you offer. And I know that sounds like really, really elementary, but it's the truth. There's a lot of people that kind of just like cover their eyes and just connect with people. But that's why you have to, the way that I correlate that is why you put certain keywords in that people would find you. You want to search for people the same way. So you want to search by industry, by job title, by profession. If they end up seeing your profile, your connection request come across, they're like, oh, makes total sense why Dustin wants to connect with me. Makes total sense why Scott wants to connect with me. I'm going to hit accept. So you always connect with the people that either A, will value what you can offer the marketplace, or B, you have commonality with for collaboration, like Dustin and I do, being podcast hosts, right? So if I wanted to use LinkedIn also from a power partner perspective or collaboration perspective, I could start collaborating with other business coaches, right? Other consultants who also could be clients, other podcasters, so on and so on. The strength of your network is the strength of your net worth. So you have to think about the people I'm connecting with. Will there be value in that connection where they see value in me and could potentially at some point cross that bridge to becoming a client where it's now an acquired paying person in my business? Now, The third thing is messaging. And I would say from a foundational standpoint with messaging, don't message people the way that you don't want to be messaged.
Cardinal rule, and one that I know is broken every day because you and I, I'm sure, both receive them all the time. The horrible stuff where you're like, I never want to meet this person in real life because they're creepy or weird. So yeah,
My wife and I call it the smell test. If the messages that you're about to send stinks, don't send it. Like, it's just plain and simple. You do not want to send or receive an 18 paragraph long drunkalog verbal vomit message. You just don't. That's not how you win business. You're going to lose every single time. So when you are messaging someone, you want to craft a message that's very clear, very direct, but very warm. So it could be, hey, Dustin, so great to connect with you. I noticed that we had similar backgrounds in business coaching and podcasting. Would love to hear more about your business, share more about mine, and how we can support each other here on LinkedIn. Anytime for a call or a Zoom this or next week. It's very warm. It's very connectable. I'm mentioning a connection point between myself and Dustin, actually 2 connection points. And then I have a very clear call to action. Would you like to talk offline? Because you have to have a CTA. So people say, well, how do I get more people to respond? Have you asked them to respond?
Ask them, yeah.
Most people, they finish with a statement. So statements lead to nowhere, questions lead to answers. You have to ASK to GET. You have to ask in order to get. So when you're optimizing your profile the right way, you're connecting with the right people, you're genuinely messaging them, you're going to have more conversations. And now I would say the fourth and final thing, and what people need to know is 3 specific statistics. I already dropped one. The average income that someone makes on LinkedIn is between $75,000 to $100,000 a year more. Number 2, 88% of people on LinkedIn are in the decision-making role, which means 12% are actually providing services and offers. So if you're listening to this and you have something to offer and provide, you can be in the 12%, not the 88%. And third, only 3% of the LinkedIn population posts 1 time a week or more, which means the visibility effect and opportunity that you have is through the roof, because if you're in that 3%, that means 97% are just consuming content. Which brings me to my final point of the basic strategy is producing 3 pieces of content a week. Now, I call this the bookend methodology, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right? So you have either Monday and Friday or Tuesday and Thursday, you have a video on the one side of the bookshelf. And then on the opposite end of the bookshelf, either Thursday or Friday, you have your long form written content. So that could be done in an image text post up to 3,000 characters, or it could be done in a newsletter article or newsletter edition up to 150,000 characters, completely up to the person. In the middle of your video and your long form written content is your market research. Now, that market research is done in a poll question. So I always tell people, if you want to find out what you should be posting, ask.
Ask so you can get, right? Yeah, okay.
So an example would be, a poll question could be, how often do you post on LinkedIn each week? 1 time per week, 3 to 5, barely ever, other comment below. So if I see the majority of people, and this was actually a poll question I asked last week at the time that we're recording this, the majority of people, nearly 60% of the people that voted, said that they're not nearly posting enough or maybe once a week. So then I use that information to then create a piece of written content on the 3 posts that you should create every single week. Then I turn that into a video training. And now that's going to become another poll question, which is going to be, which type of LinkedIn content do you post most often? A poll, a video, written content, other comment below. Now, what's going to happen after I do that is whatever the least popular answer is, that's going to become my next piece of content explaining why they should be. So just say, for example purposes, say that they say the one that they're not doing at all, I notice poll questions, they're never doing. They're posting image text post, they're doing video, but they're not doing poll questions for market research. So then I could do an image text post or a newsletter edition on the 3 reasons why you need to post 1 poll per week on LinkedIn. So now my content is fueling more content. So I typically talk about the same thing every single week. It's just in different forms. I'll do a video on it. Could be a quick little 30-second tip video, vertical video right from your phone. I'll do a market research poll. And then the answer from that becomes that long form piece of content on Friday, whether it's just an image of me with text, above it, up to 3,000 characters, or a more deeply contextual piece of content, which I typically like, which is my newsletter, which is about 8,800 subscribers strong now on LinkedIn. And there'll be imagery in there. And from a foundational standpoint, if someone just takes the time and they optimize their LinkedIn profile, they connect with the right people, message them genuinely, and provide value through their content, right? So the content someone has to learn something, or they need to take action on something, right? So you have to provide information or education so next steps can be taken. You're not selling and pitching, you're educating and informing. And if you're doing those four things from just a very basic foundational standpoint on LinkedIn, you'll hit a home run.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure this will be a clip that we'll pull out, but I view that in terms, that's a flywheel, right? Like that you are going through a consistent 3-post sequence that gets better and better and feeds itself, right? Because it's the poll question, the research question that feeds the long form. And then from that long form, you can pull out the best snippet and make a quick video. And then you go back and ask again. And it takes away this like deer in the headlines. I don't know what to post, so I'm just going to procrastinate and not post this week. I like that. And so I think I have one quick hit sort of follow-up question for each of those 3 pieces of content that's a little more advanced. So video, that's something I don't do well, or I don't do enough of. Do you see the video? Is it preferable to do something native to LinkedIn? And if so, should it be like vertical or horizontal? And like, you know what I mean? There's like sort of like YouTube style videos, there's TikTok style videos. What works best on LinkedIn right now?
To get started, I would do the vertical videos. So that is something that you could do native. Again, to your point, you can actually log onto the LinkedIn app and you can hit the media button right on there, and it will ask you to access your camera. And there's a record button right there. And you just literally hit record and you just do a quick little 30 to 45 second little tip of the day that's going to leave value. Basically, from there, you'll click next. And then you'll write some context above, like what the post is about. Like, here's a little tip to do X, Y, and Z. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. What was your biggest takeaway? Couple hashtags, and then you post it. And that's really all you need to do for video. Short form, quick hit video right now is really becoming popular on LinkedIn. They have their own LinkedIn video feed now on the app. So it's in beta. Some people have it, some people don't. I do, fortunately, so it's cool to see. So I would say just get your content out there that way, because video connects people better than any other form of content. So it will automatically position you as a trusted person, because obviously people know that it takes a lot of vulnerability and gumption to really put yourself out there that way. And it's a great way to connect with your audience.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, that was awesome. So video quick tips, don't put too much pressure on yourself, do something quick, and you've got something to feed off of, because you can kind of go back to your last form of long form or that poll and just like riff on that. Maybe it's a personal story of how this has worked for you, or it's a quick story about a client, or it's just a quick tip like, hey, what Scott could have just made a video that said, hey, when you're doing LinkedIn videos, just hit the plus button on your app and do a vertical and do it for 30 seconds. No pressure. You're going to love it. And here's how it works. So that's a great video tip. The middle here, the poll research. So I've done this sparingly, and I probably did it a little too transactionally. There's been a couple times where I'm like, the poll was, hey, I'm thinking about creating something. Which of these things would you want me to create, right? And so it wasn't very broad in the sense that it gets a high response rate. However, one of the really cool things I discovered in doing that is you actually get to see how people respond, like the individuals. So if I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about doing a workshop on LinkedIn, and Scott says, I would like that, then I can actually like go to Scott and say, hey, man, heard you want this workshop. Here's a link to it, right? And so you can literally see who responds and how they respond. So you can be pretty strategic. Are there more strategic ways to use the polls besides just tell me which content to create next?
Well, I always like to, so I created a GPT in ChatGPT that basically I like to find out. So I taught ChatGPT all about me and my business, about my ideal clients, the problems that I solve for. And I'll basically say everything that you know about me, my ideal client persona is really struggling with marketing themselves on LinkedIn. Can you give me a very simple question to ask my audience that would draw up engagement? And please give me 3 response options that are under 30 characters in length. And then basically it will give me this great question that I maybe never would have thought of. And it's all directed towards, and it's all me. It's all about my information. And to your point, that's what I also utilize the LinkedIn polls. Like you said, like where you can see the people who vote. You can see the people who vote. I use it as more of also a nurture campaign. So if like I do a poll, like the poll that I just kind of referenced, I ended up getting like 70 some odd votes or whatever. So I can click on the 70 votes, I can see who voted, and then someone that's in my ideal client avatar pool that I want to kind of like nurture, I'll click the message button and I'll message them and just thank them for voting and say, thanks for voting my poll. If I could be of any help or service in any way, don't hesitate to reach out. And thanks again for supporting me. And that's it. And I just kind of like just drip on them and then I just kind of move on. So I like to use the polls from that perspective as well to kind of almost like an active nurture campaign on the platform to just to let people know, hey, I'm here, I'm visible. And if you need any help, don't hesitate to knock on my door.
That's awesome. Yeah. And then they feel seen, you're real, and you're not pitching them, but you're opening the door. So they may say, yeah, I'm really glad you actually asked that question because I've been thinking I need help with this, or and tell me more about what you do, Scott, because I've been following your content and I want to, and of course that's how you enter into a natural conversation that can lead to a sale. So that was awesome. I love the poll strategy. And then the final one, the long form content, that's probably the thing most people are familiar with. You write a normal text post, you might include an image on there. So kind of 2 questions there. I want to talk about the post version of this and the newsletter version of this. So on the post version, what are your feelings about images? I feel like that's one of the questions I get a lot. Like, should I include an image? Should it be a selfie? Should it be a screenshot? Like, should we have an image? Should we mix it up? Like, what images tend to work best in your experience?
Yeah, I believe in A/B testing. So again, I would do maybe a couple weeks of no image. I would do a couple weeks with an image. I would do a couple weeks with maybe a graph or some sort of visual representation of what you're talking about. A couple weeks of selfies of you, like more personal branded. So find out, like LinkedIn will let you know through the analytics of what your audience wants more of. So I would say definitely kind of like play around with different forms. And again, it's really about just providing value. And I would say corner to that, like the difference between that and a newsletter.
Yeah.
Newsletters is where you can go as deep as you want. Like I love newsletters. So I created another GPT that I will give chat a 3,000 character post that I typed up for an image text post. And then I created a GPT where it reformats it into a newsletter for me. So it just takes my information and then basically from there, it reformats it and then I'm good to go. I like newsletters because you can have a subscriber base. So LinkedIn invites people to subscribe to your newsletter. So these are people that want to hear what you're doing and what you have to say. So you have a higher open rate, you have a higher impression rate, and a higher analytic rate. So when you're doing just a regular image text post, yes, if it falls into the right hands, it could completely blow up. But I curate specific content for the newsletter editions that is specifically geared towards those subscribers to, again, nurture them through what I'm doing. But again, try different things. Even with my newsletters, I'm trying, just content, right? So just like content, I try some newsletters that have like kind of bullet points to kind of contextually go along with the content. And then I do another test where I throw images that correlate to the content that I've written. So I'm all about kind of just trying different things. I never get comfortable with my strategy on LinkedIn. I'm always trying to kind of reframe, rewire, and relaunch to see what hits, what doesn't. And that's why I do look at my impressions every 7 to 14 days to see which are my top performing posts, why were they, how can I duplicate this, how can I create more like this that I just created.
Love that. And I think just to be really clear for people hear newsletter and they think, oh, my, kit or active campaign, you have your own, hopefully your own external newsletter. This is a LinkedIn native newsletter that people can subscribe to. And when it comes out, they get a notification specific to the newsletter. And depending on how they have their stuff set up, it'll actually go to their their email directly. As I understand it, and it's been a long time since I've looked at this, I don't currently have a LinkedIn newsletter. I think this is definitely a low-hanging fruit. Isn't it true that when you start one, you can actually like invite all of your followers to become subscribers for the first couple or something like that?
So LinkedIn, when you create the newsletter and you publish your first edition, LinkedIn will auto invite every connection you have to subscribe.
Okay.
So you will have subscribers with the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
So I
So
had
make that first one good and make it clear that this is a new value add and that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So mine's called LinkedIn Tips and Updates. I had 1,000 in 24 hours, like 1,000 subscribers right away.
Wow.
Then to your point, every time you release a new newsletter edition, LinkedIn puts a push notification out to your networks. It says, check it out, but also emails them and says, check out, join the conversation on here. Now, the other thing is, if you're doing the second thing that I talked about, you're building your network. If someone accepts your connection, after they accept, they get an auto invite to subscribe to your newsletter. So LinkedIn helps you grow your newsletter while you grow your network. So they go hand in hand.
I love that. That's probably the most powerful, more advanced strategy that we've tapped into, and something that is really opening my eyes. I'm like, yeah, I totally got to do that.
Well, it's also an easy way to build your email list, because at the end of every newsletter on LinkedIn, you can put a hyperlink to a landing page or an assessment or a download. And, for I have 8,800 subscribers. So every week I'm getting 8,800 eyeballs on a lead magnet that can then convert into email subscribers off the platform, which is what I'm doing.
That's awesome. Sweet. Two more. I'm getting really tactical because I know these. I'm asking you questions that not only I have, but I hear all the time. So this maybe it sounds old school, but you said the word and I hadn't even thought about to ask you, but hashtags. So, old school social media is about hashtags. Follow me on Instagram with hashtags, all that stuff. What are the role of hashtags on LinkedIn? Should we include them in every post? Do they do anything? So yeah, tell us a little bit more about hashtags.
3 hashtags for image text posts or videos. Basically, there's a rule of 3. So with LinkedIn, they show more content that has 3 specific hashtags related to the content. 1 or 2 is okay. You're not going to get as much visibility. 4 and above, you're going to get devalued. So they're going to show it to less people because they don't want it like Instagram. So 3 is the magic number. But make sure that the 3 hashtags that you use are related to the content, but also that people actually follow. So hashtags have followings. So you can actually, after you post your content, you can click on the hashtag that you used and it will show you how many people are following it, which will tell you if it's an active hashtag that people are actually paying attention to. You can see other people that are using that same hashtag, so you can use it as a networking tool, but also it will put you in front of the right people, because LinkedIn does value showing people content that has the hashtags that they're following in sometimes first above anything else. So there is a benefit to using the right hashtags.
Okay, well, that's super insightful. And so if you're not sure which ones to use, you can try some, because if you hashtag and start to type, it'll auto-populate some ideas, I think. But then as you're following creators that are in your space that you admire, who do a great job, follow Scott, Aaron, obviously, and then pay attention to the hashtags they're using and kind of piggyback on that. So I think that's really useful. And then the final one that I wanted to ask, and obviously I'll open the mic to you, Scott, and let you add anything else you want to add here, is recycling. So I think a super undervalued strategy is, like, people have this mindset, kind of like other social media, where it's a one and done, right? But I think on LinkedIn, one of the cool things that I've experienced is you can totally recycle the best content, right? You can go look at your analytics and be like, this thing killed. I want to reuse it. Now maybe you tweak it, repackage it. So how do we recycle the best content? Should we recycle it? Do we need to tweak it? Like, what's the best strategies around repurposing content?
I love repurposing. So sometimes if I'm kind of like not sure what to post, I will go back through maybe something I did, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I'll repurpose it into something else. Maybe if I did it as a newsletter edition and I didn't necessarily do it as an image text post, I'll shorten the information, throw an image of myself, do it that way. Something that I'm doing right now as a repurposing strategy is either bi-weekly or monthly, taking old posts where I gave maybe 3 tangible tips, and I'm actually doing LinkedIn carousel posts now, which are almost like Instagram carousel posts. So the key to those is if you go onto Canva and just type in LinkedIn carousel post, it'll give you templates that you can use. And then you basically just input your information and you just they're like quick hitters. It's just like quick tangible tips that people can slide through on the desktop and mobile app. The only caveat is make sure that when you download the file, you save it as PDF standard, because it's a PDF document that you have to upload. You cannot save it as a JPEG or a PNG file. It's got to be PDF standard. And then basically you'll go on, and then this is under the document tab on LinkedIn. So when you go to create a post, you'll click the plus sign, which will give you the full gamut of what you can do. The second to last one is a little document. You click on it, and then you basically upload the file, give it a title, write some context, and then post it. So that's one of the best ways, because what I've realized is that people on LinkedIn visually engage with different things. So some of them engage in visual representations like that. Some people like to engage in video so they can see and hear. Some people like to read the newspaper, so they'll read long form articles or newsletters. So I'm a big believer in trying all different forms of content to see what hits, when, how, why, and should I do more of it.
Love that. I said that was my last one, but if I can indulge for one more minute, commenting. So we talked a lot about your profile, inbound, how to start a conversation with people. We talked a lot about content. So like, how do you create content? The three-piece cycle here. We talked about newsletters and hashtags and repurposing. What about commenting on other people's profiles as a visibility tool and as a content sort of discovery tool? I'd love your thoughts on that, and then I'll turn it over to you for any gaps that we need to fill in, and we'll talk about how people should come find you. But yeah, how about commenting or sort of engaging with other profiles as a growth strategy?
Yeah, so I created a GPT for that too. So I look so LinkedIn gives me suggested posts now for me, like, and some people may get this, like you'll go to your notifications and LinkedIn will say suggested for you. And it's like a really high engaging post. They're doing that for a reason, because they see the context of what is being talked about in that post relates to you and your expertise. So I created a GPT that I teach others how to use, that basically I will copy the person's post, and basically ChatGPT knows all about me, knows my zone of genius, and I'll say, Dustin said this, please give me some ideas of what I can reply with that highlight his post and my expertise. And it basically will spit out like exactly what I would say. It's awesome. And then I basically tweak anything that needs to be tweaked. I edit what I need to edit, rewrite it the way that I need to. And then I go on and then I basically post it under that person's post. And what it does is, and this happened the other day, I did it with a Gary Vee post. 6 or 7 people actually liked my comment, which makes my comment the most relevant comment. So there's 2 types of comments. There's recent and relevant. Recent doesn't matter. LinkedIn shows by relevancy. So the more relevant your comment can be where people engage with it, the more likely they're going to continue to show it, which means it gives your profile visibility. So you can start growing your network off of just commenting on high engaged content that's going out on the platform every day.
I love that. So that's a very simple way to grow your profile, is go comment on relevant profiles where your ideal clients are reading those and commenting on those. And if your headline is good, it has your name and it has like the first so much of your headline. So as long as the start of your headline is relevant, they can immediately see Dustin, profitable podcast guesting, and then they see my response and be like, oh, I'm curious about that. And they'll click over to my profile. And so like you just said, you had Gary Vee. My most viral post several months ago, Alex Hormozy had made this post. I read it. I sort of had a visceral reaction to something he shared. I just made I'm in the airport getting ready to get on a plane. I left like a 2-line comment, but it was direct. It wasn't offensive, but it was direct. It was kind of a hot take on why I thought it was ignorant, the thing that he shared. And when I landed from the plane, I had, I don't know, more than 100 people had reacted, and then a lot of comments. Yeah, it was crazy. And so it became a top relevant comment. And so then I was like, well, this is interesting. So I actually took my comment, made it my own post, screenshotted his post as the image, and said, people are really responding strongly to my thoughts on this. I'd love your thoughts. And then on my own profile, this post became, I think I had 250,000 impressions, hundreds of comments, booked sales calls, because it was relevant to what I do, but it was like a hot take. So that was sort of a unicorn magical moment. And that's an extreme example, but you could do that and hit a lot of singles just by like commenting on someone else's profile.
It doesn't always have to be a home run.
Borrowing their audience, right? In a way that brings the right people over to your profile. So
exactly.
I feel like we could talk for hours, but we can't because we gotta go do some other things here, Scott. But I would love to dude, how did you not ask me this sort of response? And then barring that, call to action where people should go to go deeper with you or deeper with their LinkedIn journey here.
Yeah, no, I think all the questions were great. I think this is a great starting place for people to kind of go back and listen to all this because there's some, I would say, beginner tactics, and I think there's some advanced strategies. So I think a lot of the bases were covered. If someone is looking to kind of learn more about me and what I do, obviously LinkedIn is a great place to find me. You can subscribe to my newsletter. I do 2 free LinkedIn trainings per week, every Monday and Thursday at 10 Eastern. So those are quick hit 15-minute trainings that people can pop on. Also, if you go to my website, scottaaron.net, that's where you can listen to my podcast, grab my book. And then if you want to learn a little bit more about my wife and what we're building, you can also go to thetimetogrowcom and you can learn about everything that we're doing to help people grow and scale their business.
Beautiful, man. That was awesome. So Scott Aaron, just like it sounds, I don't know, he's been on there a long time because he says like Scott Aaron as the profile, and then scottaaron.net to go deeper. Scott, you're a treasure to the audience. I'm really grateful to connect with you here. I know I'm going to be on your podcast and talk about podcast guesting. And I really feel like these are very complementary strategies and topics. So thanks again for being here. Go to scottaaron.net, go to Scott Aaron on LinkedIn. Make sure you're following him, getting on his newsletter there. Man, so much gratitude. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing so much.
Absolutely. Grateful to be here and can't wait to hear the reaction.